There is a major development developing around Iraq's upcoming 2027 federal budget, and this time the conversation is not simply about government spending. The exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar is once again becoming one of the most important questions surrounding Iraq's financial plans. Could the 2027 budget become the point where Iraq finally makes a major exchange rate decision? Could reforms connected to the budget create the conditions for a stronger Iraqi dinar? Or are online RV claims moving much faster than the official evidence? Today, we are breaking down what is actually happening, what Iraq has officially said about the 2027 budget, why the exchange rate matters so much, and what all of this could mean for Iraqi dinar holders. And before we go any further, there is one very important distinction. A budget discussion involving the exchange rate is not the same thing as an officially announced revaluation. That distinction is extremely important. Recent Iraqi government reporting shows that the 2027 budget is being prepared with a reform-oriented approach focused on fiscal sustainability, economic reform, improving government spending, diversifying revenue and reducing dependence on oil income. Iraq's financial advisor to the Prime Minister, Mudir Mohammed Saleh, said the 2027 budget is being prepared with the goal of strengthening fiscal sustainability and supporting economic reform. That is significant because Iraq's economy remains heavily dependent on oil revenues. When oil revenues become unstable, the government faces pressure from salaries, pensions, infrastructure spending and other obligations. And this is exactly where the exchange rate becomes important. The official exchange rate affects how the government values oil revenues when converting dollars into Iraqi dinars. So when Iraq prepares a major federal budget, the exchange rate is not a minor technical detail. It can influence government revenue calculations, spending capacity and the overall fiscal balance. This is why dinar watchers are paying attention to the 2027 budget. But here is where the story gets interesting. Iraq did not pass a national budget for 2026. Instead, government spending has continued under a temporary mechanism that allows spending roughly equal to 1/12 of previous eligible expenditures each month. Recent reporting says Iraq has now been operating without a full national budget for an extended period. That makes the 2027 budget especially important. It is not simply another annual spending document. It is being prepared after a period of serious fiscal and political pressure. And that gives the exchange rate question much more attention. Now let's look at the current exchange rate situation. In January 2026, the Central Bank of Iraq officially communicated that the exchange rate to be adopted in the 2026 budget framework was 1,300 Iraqi dinars per US dollar. The central bank said this was the official rate that had been in effect since February 2023. The same reporting indicated a structure in which the central bank would purchase dollars from the Ministry of Finance at 1,300 dinars, sell them to banks at 1,310, with banks offering dollars at around 1,320 dinars for certain transactions. So the important point is this. Iraq has already demonstrated that the exchange rate can be explicitly incorporated into its budget framework. That is why the 2027 budget matters. If policymakers decide to change the exchange rate framework in the future, a budget is one of the places where such a policy could become financially visible. But there is still a huge difference between possibility and confirmation. At this moment, there is no verified official announcement saying that Iraq has approved a new multi-dollar RV rate for the Iraqi dinar. There is also no confirmed government announcement saying that the dinar will suddenly move to $3, $4, $5 or another viral number circulating online. Those claims should be treated as speculation unless and until they are supported by an official Central Bank of Iraq decision or another authoritative government document. So why are RV discussions increasing again? One reason is the broader reform agenda. Iraq is attempting to modernize its financial system. The country has been working on banking reforms, financial compliance, digital payments, government financial management and reducing dependence on cash. The central bank has also been under pressure to strengthen financial stability and improve the banking environment. And in 2026, Iraq appointed a new central bank governor, Nazar Nasser Hussain, who has extensive experience in banking regulation and anti-money laundering work. That appointment comes at a time when Iraq is dealing with financial pressure and continuing its reform efforts. All of these developments are being interpreted by dinar watchers as possible pieces of a larger currency story. But we have to be careful. Financial reform does not automatically mean currency revaluation. A stronger banking system does not automatically mean a new exchange rate. And a new budget does not automatically mean an RV. What it does mean is that Iraq is working on the underlying financial infrastructure that could influence the future of the dinar. And that is where the 2027 budget becomes particularly interesting. Recent reports indicate that Iraq intends to introduce program and performance-based budgeting beginning with the 2027 federal budget. Instead of simply allocating money based on historical spending, the new model is designed to connect government funding with specific programs, measurable results and strategic priorities. The system is expected to begin gradually, with selected ministries and provinces, before expanding further. Why does this matter to dinar holders? Because it shows that the 2027 budget is being designed as part of a broader attempt to change how Iraq manages public money. The government is talking about efficiency. It is talking about reducing waste. It is talking about diversifying government revenue. It is talking about protecting social spending while prioritizing economically valuable investments. And it is talking about strengthening Iraq's ability to handle external economic shocks. These are the kinds of reforms that can matter to a country's currency over the long term. But again, there is a difference between creating stronger economic foundations and announcing an overnight RV. Now let's talk about Iraq's oil problem. Oil remains the backbone of Iraq's government revenue. Recent reports have highlighted pressure on Iraq's finances due to changes in oil revenues and disruptions in energy markets. One report in August said currency issuance had increased by 13.8% during the first 5 months of 2026, reaching approximately 113.56 trillion Iraqi dinars. The government's financial advisor described the increase as an exceptional response to lower oil revenue rather than an attempt to stimulate demand. That is important, because when a country faces a fiscal squeeze, policymakers have to balance government spending, revenues, liquidity and monetary stability. And the exchange rate becomes part of that equation. This is exactly why the 2027 budget could become a major watch point. If Iraq wants to improve fiscal sustainability, it needs to carefully manage its revenues and expenditures. If it wants to reduce its dependence on oil, it needs new sources of revenue. If it wants to strengthen the financial system, it needs reforms. And if it wants to maintain currency stability, the central bank has to manage monetary policy carefully. All of these pieces are connected. So could the 2027 budget eventually include an exchange rate adjustment? It is possible. Could it include a major change? That cannot currently be confirmed. Could it be the beginning of a process that eventually supports a stronger dinar? That is something investors and analysts can reasonably watch. But anyone claiming that an exact RV rate has already been approved should be able to produce an official document. And that is the key test. Not a Telegram post, not a YouTube thumbnail, not a screenshot without a source, not a supposed bank memo. The real confirmation would need to come through an official Iraqi institution. For example, the Central Bank of Iraq, the Ministry of Finance, the Council of Ministers or Parliament. Until that happens, specific RV rates remain speculation. Now here is another important development. Iraq's Finance Ministry has been working on the 2027 federal budget, and reporting indicates the draft was expected to be completed by September before moving through the review and approval process. That means the coming months could become increasingly important. As the draft becomes more detailed, analysts will be watching several things. The projected oil price, the expected oil production and export assumptions, government revenue, public sector salaries, investment spending, debt and financing requirements, and, of course, the exchange rate assumptions used in the calculations. These details can tell us much more than viral RV rumors. Because a budget is numbers. And numbers have to balance. If Iraq changes the exchange rate, the financial consequences would be significant. It would affect the dinar value of dollar-denominated oil revenues. It could affect government purchasing power. It could affect imports. It could affect inflation. It could affect private sector businesses. And it could affect the government's fiscal calculations. That is why an exchange rate change cannot simply happen because dinar holders want it to happen. There must be a broader economic and monetary rationale behind it. So when you hear the phrase, Iraq links the 2027 budget to the exchange rate, the safest interpretation is not that an RV has been announced. The more accurate interpretation is that the exchange rate is an important part of Iraq's fiscal planning, and the 2027 budget could provide additional information about how policymakers intend to manage that rate. And that distinction could become extremely important over the next few months. If the 2027 budget maintains the existing exchange rate framework, that would tell us something. If policymakers officially introduce a new exchange rate framework, that would tell us something much bigger. If the budget emphasizes fiscal reform while maintaining currency stability, that would also be a significant signal. And if the central bank makes an independent monetary policy announcement alongside the budget process, that could become even more important. So what should Iraqi dinar holders watch from here? Number 1. Official central bank statements. Number 2. The final exchange rate assumptions inside the 2027 budget. Number 3. Statements from the Ministry of Finance. Number 4. Parliamentary Finance Committee discussions. Number 5. Oil revenue projections. And number 6. Actual monetary policy decisions. Those 6 areas are much more valuable than chasing every viral RV rate appearing online. The biggest takeaway is this: Iraq is preparing a very different kind of 2027 budget. The government is emphasizing fiscal sustainability, economic reform, revenue diversification, and more performance-focused spending. The exchange rate remains an important part of Iraq's economic equation, but there is currently no official confirmation that the 2027 budget has already triggered an Iraqi dinar revaluation. That means the story is developing, but it is not finished. And if Iraq eventually decides to change the exchange rate framework, the evidence will likely appear through official financial and monetary channels rather than through anonymous rumors. So yes, the 2027 budget deserves attention. Yes, the exchange rate deserves attention. Yes, Iraq's financial reforms deserve attention. But the smartest approach is to separate the real economic signals from the exaggerated RV claims. Because if a genuine exchange rate change happens, you will not need a rumor to prove it. There will be an official decision. There will be documentation. There will be financial consequences. And there will be a clear trail through Iraq's institutions. For now, the 2027 budget is best viewed as a major economic watch point, not as proof that an RV has already been approved. And that may actually make the next few months even more interesting. As Iraq moves toward completing its 2027 budget draft, every new official statement about the exchange rate, monetary policy, oil revenue, and financial reform could become increasingly important. So if you are following the Iraqi dinar story, this is one timeline you definitely want to keep watching. Because the real question is no longer simply, will Iraq change the dinar? The more important question is, what economic framework will Iraq choose for 2027, and what will that framework tell us about the future of the Iraqi dinar? That is the story to watch. And remember, this video is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice, and no specific Iraqi dinar RV rate or future exchange rate should be treated as guaranteed unless officially confirmed by the relevant Iraqi authorities.